I married the most dangerous man in Africa. It shocked the whole underworld. I was a broke Ugandan college student. My family lived in poverty. One day, I met a billionaire South African Mafia arms dealer. He is the man everyone fears. Against the odds, I fell in love and married him. This is part 9. If you're new here, I recommend starting the story from the beginning. I wake up before the alarm. My body learned how to do that these days, before class, before clinic days, before days that feel important, even when nothing really happens. The room is quiet, that early morning Kampala quiet. No radios yet, no shouting, just a boda passing somewhere far, sounding like it's sorry for making noise. Light slips through the thin curtains and falls on the secondhand rug Ruth and I bought last year. One corner still curls up. I always tell myself I'll tape it down. I never do. I sit up slowly, not because I'm tired, because my body has rules now. I wait for the dizziness. Sometimes it comes. Today, it doesn't. I count that as a good start. The apartment is small, 1 bedroom, a living room that pretends to be a dining room, a kitchen that only works if one person is inside it at a time. Thabo rents it. He chose it online and sent the deposit before I could complain. Said it was close enough to campus. I didn't tell him it was also close enough to my old life that I can still pretend nothing really changed. I walk into the kitchen barefoot. The tiles are cold. I like that. It reminds me where I am, that I'm awake, that this is real. I put the kettle on even though I don't really want tea. I just need something to do with my hands. Something normal. My phone is on the counter, face down. I turn it over. No new messages. I check the time. 6:12 a.m. He said he would come back this month. Not a date, just the month. I've learned not to ask for dates when people have important jobs. Dates make things heavy. Dates make promises louder. I take out Ruth's mug, the one with the chipped handle, and place it on the counter. I always use mine second. She says it doesn't matter. I still wait. Without thinking, my hand goes to my stomach. It's not showing yet. Not in a way strangers notice, but I notice. Every morning. Behave, I whisper. I'm not sure if I'm talking to my body or the baby. The kettle clicks off. I pour the water and don't add sugar. I've been trying not to. Behind me, the bedroom door creaks. Ruth shuffles out wearing her old university hoodie, hair wrapped, eyes still half asleep. She goes straight for her mug. You're up early, she says. I woke up, I reply. It's true enough. She pours her coffee and adds too much sugar, like always. The smell fills the room. Coffee, detergent, that damp smell the apartment never fully loses. She leans against the counter and looks at me. You didn't sleep again. I slept, I say. I just woke up early. She hums. She doesn't believe me, but she lets it go. That's one of the reasons I love her. She knows when I'm already holding things too tightly. You have class today? She asks. Late morning. Clinic? Tomorrow. She nods, storing it away. Ruth remembers schedules better than I do. Sometimes I think she's keeping track in case I forget who I am. I check my phone again. Still nothing. I tell myself that's normal. He's busy. He's always been busy. That part never changed. You'll hear from him, Ruth says casually, watching me watch the screen. You always do. I smile because that's what you do when someone gives you reassurance you're not sure you deserve. I know. Her eyes move to the small bag near the couch. It's not packed. Not properly. Just a few things folded neatly. Documents inside a brown envelope. Clothes I've washed twice, even though they were already clean. When is he coming again? She asks. Soon. She lifts an eyebrow. Soon, 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 soon. She laughs softly. You're impossible. I don't correct her. When Ruth goes back to her room to get ready for work, the apartment goes quiet, but not empty. I can still hear her. Drawers opening, keys clinking, music playing low from her phone. It grounds me. I sit on the couch and pick at a loose thread on my shirt until it snaps. The hole is small, but I know I'll see it every time now. I think about the message Thabo sent months ago. I remember the words exactly because I read them too many times. I'll come back for you. Not I'll visit. Not we'll see. I told Grace about it. She paused before replying. Grace always pauses. That sounds serious, she said. It is, I answered too fast. My mother said nothing when I told her, just hummed the way she does when she's calculating what something will cost later. I straighten the cushions even though they're already straight. Wipe the counter, line up the shoes by the door. Small control, small order. My phone buzzes. I freeze, one hand still resting on the back of the chair. It's not him. It's Grace. Any news? Not yet, I type. You okay? I stare at the question longer than I need to. I type, I'm fine, then delete it. I'm okay, I write instead. I sit down properly this time and place both hands on my stomach, not protectively, just there. I'm trying, I whisper. I really am. The apartment doesn't answer. Ruth comes out dressed, bag over her shoulder. Don't forget to eat. I won't. She pauses at the door like she wants to say something else. Then she doesn't. Text me later. I will. The lock clicks behind her. I'm alone again, staring at the bag by the couch, phone in my hand, waiting for it to vibrate. Nothing happens. Somehow, that feels like the last calm moment I'm going to get. By the time I reach campus, the sun is already rude. The soft morning is gone, replaced by that sharp Kampala heat that makes you question every life choice, including shoes. My backpack feels heavier than it should, like it's full of stones instead of notebooks. Or maybe it's just my body reminding me I'm carrying more than myself now. The lecture hall is loud, alive with voices and scraping chairs. I slide into a seat near the back, the one where no one expects you to speak. Safe. Invisible. I stare at the blank page in my notebook. Normal, I tell myself. Just be normal. The professor's voice turns into background noise. Pen scratching. Someone coughing. A girl laughing softly at something on her phone. Life keeps moving at its usual careless speed while I feel suspended inside it. My phone buzzes. Not him. Grace again, asking if I've eaten. I turn the screen face down. Like ignoring it might slow time. Like it might keep him from arriving, or from not arriving. Both thoughts scare me. I force myself to write. My handwriting looks strange. Too careful. My pen pauses, and my fingers drift down, brushing my belly under the desk. The quiet weight of it still surprises me. Miss AMINA? My heart jumps painfully. I look up too fast. The professor is staring at me, chalk frozen in midair. The room suddenly feels enormous. Yes? My voice comes out thinner than I want. He repeats the question. I catch only part of it. My mouth opens, closes. Heat climbs up my neck. I feel eyes sharpen with interest. I hate being seen like this. Sorry, I say, forcing my breath to slow. Could you repeat that? He does. I answer. Not perfectly, not confidently, but enough. Good, he says, already turning back to the board. Just like that, I'm forgotten again. Relief rushes through me so hard it makes me dizzy. I bend over my notebook, hands shaking. You're fine. I tell myself, you're still here, but I know that isn't completely true. When class ends, I wait for the rush to pass before standing. My stomach rolls with that familiar nausea. I walk straight to the library. It smells like old books and dust and ink. Comforting. Tired. It asks very little of me. Sit, be quiet, pretend you belong. I choose a table near the window and watch students cross the courtyard in clusters, laughing, planning, talking about futures that suddenly feel very far from mine. I open my laptop, close it, open my notebook again, focus. My phone buzzes. Nothing from him. I don't open our chat. I don't want to be the one who checks first. I don't want to confirm what I'm already afraid of, that I'm waiting more than he is. Under the table, my fingers find my belly again, slower this time, like an apology. I'm trying, I whisper. I promise. The world doesn't stop. Somewhere, a book drops. By evening, the sky softens again by the time I reach the apartment. Gold light spills across the street. Vendors pack up. Radios argue. Ruth is already home. Onions are frying. The apartment looks the same as always. Too small, too familiar, too safe. How was class? She asks. Fine, I say. It's the easiest lie. I sit on the bed just to breathe. Press my palm to my stomach until the tightness eases. Then I pull out the suitcase. It scrapes softly across the floor. I lay things out neatly. Documents, clothes, lists I keep rewriting, passport, clinic card, charger, vitamins. I check everything once, twice, then again, still nothing on my phone. You'll see him soon, Ruth says lightly. Everything will change. Everything. I imagine the airport, his hands, the relief, the safety, and then I imagine leaving this room, this bed, the freedom to walk outside without explaining myself. Hey, she says gently. You okay? I think so. Later, after dinner, after dishes, I sit on the bed with the suitcase open. Everything is inside now. Nothing left to add. I pick up my phone one last time. No message. I set it face down and rest both hands on my stomach. Soon, I whisper. To the baby. To him. To myself. The room feels warm, safe, too quiet, and for the first time I understand something. Waiting isn't empty at all, it's full. His arrival in Entebbe Airport was louder than I remembered. Not shouting, just constant. Wheels dragging across tile, voices overlapping, someone laughing too hard behind me. The PA announcing arrivals in a flat voice, like it didn't belong to anyone real. Ruth paid the taxi driver while I stood there a second longer than I needed to, my hand already resting on my stomach. I didn't remember deciding to do that. Somewhere between clinic visits and sleepless nights, my body chose this place as home. Late afternoon light poured through the glass walls, stretching everything. People, shadows, even time. I checked my phone. 4:18 p.m. His flight landed at 3:55. I told myself immigration takes time. I told myself not to invent meanings where there were none. Ruth walked beside me without rushing. She didn't ask if I was okay. She stopped asking weeks ago. Instead, she pressed her fingers lightly into the small of my back, just once, grounding me. Proof that I was really here, that I wasn't imagining any of this. The dress I chose was loose. It had been loose 2 months ago. Now it was strategic. I smoothed it down anyway. The baby didn't disappear, but the movement made me feel useful, like I was still in control of something. We stopped near the arrivals barrier. People gathered in loose clusters, families holding signs, men in suits pretending not to be impatient, children pressed against the railing. Everyone looked like they belonged to someone. I tried to stand in a way that suggested I did too. I scanned faces. After a while, tall men blurred together, so I started noticing luggage instead. Hard cases, scuffed wheels, a bright red ribbon tied to a handle. I realized I was counting how many times I looked at the sliding doors. I reached 12 and told myself that was enough. What if he doesn't recognize me? The thought landed fully formed, no warning. Ruth tilted her head toward me. He will. I nodded like that settled it. I imagined his face when he saw my stomach. Not shock. I'd already decided he wouldn't be shocked. Something quieter. A pause. A recalculation. I told myself pauses weren't rejection. Pauses were just thinking. The doors opened and a group spilled out. Someone tall stepped forward and my chest tightened so fast it made me dizzy. Then he laughed loudly into his phone and kept walking. I exhaled through my nose, slow and controlled. The air smelled like coffee and something metallic underneath it, that unmistakable airport scent. Heat drifted in every time the doors opened. I checked the time again, 4:26. My fingers traced the curve of my belly once, then stopped. I didn't want to look nervous. I wanted to look ready. I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, shaped my face into something neutral but open, something that said, I'm here. I waited. I didn't fall apart. Ruth leaned in, her voice low. When he comes out, breathe first. I almost laughed. I didn't. I nodded. The doors slid open again. Another wave of people entered the hall, and this time one of them moved differently. He didn't rush. He didn't drift. His eyes swept the room like he was checking details, not searching. My heart reacted before my brain did. I didn't move. I just stood there, hand on my stomach, watching him walk closer. He still wasn't looking at me. Not yet. I thought, this is the last second before everything changes. For a moment, I thought my eyes were lying to me. The man walking toward me looked too solid to be real. Too calm. Too sure. Like he wasn't stepping into a chaotic airport, but into a room that already belonged to him. Then he lifted his head. His eyes found mine. My chest tightened so hard I almost forgot to breathe. It was him, Thabo. Not a picture on my phone. Not a voice breaking through bad network. Here. Tall. Dark jacket. That familiar straight-backed walk, like the ground had already agreed to move for him. I froze as people brushed past me, suitcases clipping my ankles, voices loud and careless. Everything narrowed until it was just the two of us. My hands flew to my stomach without permission. Suddenly I felt huge. Exposed. Like the whole airport could see the truth I'd been carrying alone. He stopped 3 steps away. For half a heartbeat, he just looked at me. Not my face first. My stomach. I watched his eyes drop, register the curve beneath my dress, then lift back to mine. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, yes, but also relief. Pride. Something warm and dangerous all at once. You came, I whisper. It sounds stupid the moment it leaves my mouth, like saying it out loud is the only way to keep him real. I told you I would, he says softly. His voice steadies me in a way nothing else ever has. Deep. Certain. Like a promise that doesn't need to be repeated. Ruth squeezes my arm once and steps back without a word. She knows this part isn't for her. I take a step toward him, then another, and suddenly I'm crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Just tears sliding down my cheeks, my body finally admitting how long I've been holding myself together. Thabo closes the distance in 2 strides. His hands are warm when they touch my arms, grounding, anchoring me to the floor. Then he pulls me into his chest, careful but close enough that I can feel his heartbeat through his jacket. I breathe him in. Leather. A clean, unfamiliar cologne. Something expensive I can't name. And I realize I didn't know how lonely I was until that moment. I was scared you wouldn't recognize me. I murmur into his chest. I've changed. He pulls back just enough to look at me properly. His hands slide down slowly, reverently. They rest on my belly. Our baby, he says, like he's tasting the words. Something inside me breaks open. I nod, my throat tight. I wanted to tell you sooner, but he shakes his head once. Gentle. Final. You're here now. His palm spreads over my stomach. Protective. Unasking. I should feel self-conscious. Instead, I feel claimed in a way that makes my knees weak. People walk past us. Some glance, some stare. I notice how he positions himself, slightly angled, blocking me from the flow of bodies. His back to the crowd. Like instinct. Like habit. I tell myself it's just confidence. Money. Experience. Nothing more. You look tired, he says, eyes scanning my face with quiet intensity. Did you eat? I let out a weak laugh. You sound like my aunt. He smiles. Small, private. Good, he says. Someone needs to take care of you. The words settled deep in my chest. Taken care of. No one has said that to me in a long time. He reaches for my small suitcase without asking, lifting it like it weighs nothing. I notice how aware the nearby staff suddenly seem of him, how a man in uniform watches us a little too closely before looking away. Come, Thabo says. Let's get you out of here. As we walk, something strange registers. No one stops him. Not security. Not staff. Not even the officers he passes with a nod. It's like the airport bends around his presence, rearranging itself quietly. I quicken my steps to keep up. Are you okay? He asks without looking at me, already sensing the change in my breathing. Yes, I lie. Then softer, I think so. He glances down. His hand brushes mine once. Reassuring. Outside, the air is warmer, sharper. Different from home. Cars idle at the curb, engines humming. Somewhere nearby, a man argues loudly on the phone, but it feels distant, unimportant. A black car waits by the curb. Not a taxi. Not the kind I'm used to bargaining with. The driver steps out the moment he sees Thabo, opening the door with practiced ease. He nods at me respectfully, eyes dropping to my stomach before snapping back up. I hesitate. This isn't what I imagined. I thought we'd ride together in a normal car. Laugh about the flight. Maybe stop for food. Something ordinary. Thabo notices the pause. Is something wrong? He asks gently. No, I say too fast. It's just, this is all very new. He studies my face for a moment, then nods. You'll get used to it. I climb into the back seat carefully. The leather is cool against my skin. Thabo slides in beside me, close enough that our knees touch. As the car pulls away, I look back through the window at the airport, shrinking behind us. Uganda already feels far. Thabo rests his hand over mine again, steady, warm. You're safe now, he says quietly. And I believe him. I don't know yet that safety can have rules, or that love can arrive wrapped in gates and guards and quiet instructions. All I know is this. The man I love came for me and my baby. And right now, that feels like everything. Living in the hotel. The car stopped before I realized we had arrived. One moment we were still moving, traffic thinning, the city slowly loosening its grip, and the next Thabo's hand was already on the door handle. He got out first. Not hurried, not slow. Like the timing mattered. I stayed seated for half a second longer than I needed to. The building rose in front of me, all glass and quiet confidence. No signboard shouting its name, just a driveway that curved politely, like it expected to be obeyed. The sun was low enough to soften everything. Late afternoon, gold light slipping through the glass walls, the kind that makes things look expensive even when they aren't. This place didn't need help. Thabo opened my door. Careful, he said, already holding my small bag. It was the one I packed for the airport. Everything else stayed behind with Ruth. This bag was all I had right now. Documents. One dress, prenatal vitamins, a charger. I stepped out. The marble floor was cool through the thin soles of my shoes. That was the first thing I noticed. Then the smell. Flowers? Something clean and faint? Not sweet. Inside, the lobby was quiet in a way I wasn't used to. Not empty. Controlled. People moved without rushing. Voices stayed low. Shoes didn't scuff. Even the air felt filtered. Someone took the car keys from Thabo before I even saw where they came from. "Good afternoon, sir," the man said. Another voice followed. "Welcome back." They didn't look at me when they said it. Thabo nodded once. He didn't slow down. I fell into step beside him, slightly behind without meaning to. He didn't ask for directions. He didn't stop at a counter. A woman in a fitted blazer appeared like she had been waiting for him. "Your room is ready," she said. "Thank you," he replied. That was it. No paperwork, no questions, no pause. I adjusted the strap of my bag. My palm felt damp against it. My heart was moving faster than my body. I told it to calm down. I had already seen him again. I had already survived the airport. This was just a hotel. But it didn't feel like just a hotel. We crossed the lobby. The floor reflected us faintly. My sandals, his shoes, our legs moving at different rhythms. I noticed the distance between us. Half a step, enough to feel protected. Enough to feel led. "We'll be staying here for now," he said quietly, like he didn't want the room to hear him. "I've arranged everything." I nodded. "Okay." That was all. I didn't ask how long for now was. I didn't ask why here. I didn't ask anything that might slow us down. The elevator doors opened before we reached them. Inside, it was just us. The doors closed with a soft sound, not a slam. Thabo pressed a button without looking. The numbers climbed quietly. My reflection stared back at me from the mirrored wall. I looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I just looked that way standing next to him again. My hand went to my stomach without thinking, just a light touch. A reminder that I wasn't alone in here, even when I felt like I was. He noticed. His hand covered mine briefly, not possessive, not gentle either, just there. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said. I meant it, or I wanted to. The elevator opened onto another quiet space, a hallway carpeted thick enough to swallow footsteps. Doors spaced far apart. A sign on one wall read "Private, Staff Only," an arrow pointing away from us. I read it twice. I didn't know why. I just did. The woman in the blazer walked ahead of us now. She swiped a card. The door opened. The room smelled like fresh linen and something floral I couldn't name. It was large enough that my voice would echo if I raised it. I didn't plan to. Light poured in from tall windows. Kampala stretched out below us, softened by distance. "This will be fine," Thabo said, like he was checking a box. I stepped inside slowly. The carpet was thick. My feet sank a little. The bed was too neat to touch. Everything felt staged, like it was waiting to see how I would behave. A staff member appeared with our luggage. I didn't see him enter. He moved efficiently, setting my bag on a chair, opening it without asking. He started hanging my clothes with careful hands. I watched. I didn't stop him. Thabo's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His jaw tightened. Just a little. He stepped away from us, closer to the window. "Yes," he said. Then something else. Not English. Not Luganda. I didn't recognize the language. His voice stayed low, controlled, the tone people use when they don't want it to be overheard. The staff member finished and left without a word. I stood alone in the middle of the room, my things arranged by someone else. I smoothed the edge of the bedspread with my fingers. The fabric was cool, heavy, expensive in a way I could feel but not name. From the corner of my eye, I could see the city. Familiar streets reduced to patterns. Noise held at a distance. Thabo ended the call and turned back to me. "Do you need anything?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." He studied my face a second longer than necessary, like he was checking for cracks. "Rest," he said. "I'll be nearby." Okay. He left the room. The door closed quietly behind him. I stood there, listening, to the hum of the air conditioning, to my own breathing, to the sound of my life rearranging itself without asking me first. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress barely gave. This time, I placed both hands on my stomach, pressed lightly, felt the curve that hadn't been there before. We're safe, I told myself. This is what safe looks like now. Still, I noticed things. The way the door locked from the inside, the way the windows didn't open, the way the room seemed designed to keep everything exactly where it was supposed to be, including me. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. I didn't feel trapped. I felt chosen. And somewhere under that, quieter than I wanted to admit, I felt myself learning the rules. No one had told me what they were. Evening drapes itself over Kampala, and from the height of the suite, the city looks small, orderly, contained, like a toy world under the glow of streetlights. I move slowly through the room, my fingers trailing over every surface. The polished wood of the desk, the cool marble of the counters, the soft carpet under my feet. I can't help but feel small. Not insignificant, exactly, but diminished somehow, like a person stepping into a life far larger than she is. And yet, there's comfort in the rhythm of it. A quiet order I can follow, even if it isn't truly mine. Staff drift in and out like shadows. Folding towels, arranging the minibar, smoothing sheets so perfectly that nothing looks lived in, nothing out of place. Their movements are silent. Careful. The attention reminds me I am being watched, but gently, as if someone decided I am worth looking after. I press my hand to my belly and feel a flutter, a tiny kick. My chest tightens. This life inside me, fragile, new, is both mine and his, a tether to everything I've already begun to lose and everything I've been given. I try to carve a small space of control for myself. I pour a cup of tea, humming softly, balance it on the tray, line up my clothes for tomorrow. Simple gestures that feel like ownership. At the window, I watch the people below, moving like ants, unaware of the bubble I inhabit above them. The city hums on, distant, indifferent, and I let myself imagine that in this controlled world, at least, I have a place. Thabo appears like a shadow sliding across the room. His phone buzzes in his hand, and he answers without a word. His voice shifts into that other language I can't follow. I watch him, my chest tightening, not with fear, but with longing. Every call, every word I can't understand. Each one stretches the distance between us, even when he's standing just feet away. He ends the call abruptly and gives me a brief, almost shy smile. "Everything's fine," he murmurs. My lips lift in a small, tired smile of my own. I want to close the gap, to erase the hours apart. The silence, the space his business creates between us. Before I can think too much, he is there. The weight of him presses against my back as he bends to kiss my hair. Warmth spreads from him, solid and steady. The unease I've carried since leaving Uganda softens. "I missed you," he whispers, low and intimate. Instinctively, I press my hand to his, letting him feel the life stirring inside me. "I missed you too," I breathe back, barely above a whisper, but it carries everything. Hours apart, the uncertainty, the quiet ache tucked deep in my chest. We stand there holding each other in the soft glow of the lamps, letting the world outside, the staff, the phones, the invisible rules, fade to nothing. Slowly, almost hesitantly. His hands move, one sliding around my waist, the other brushing lightly over my back. I lean into him, the hum of the air conditioning, the faint city noise outside, the quiet intimacy of the suite. Everything feels private, sacred. The kiss that follows is careful at first, tentative, then deeper, slower. His hands wander lightly over my stomach, reverent. I place my palms on his chest, memorizing the rise and fall of him, the warmth, the strength, every sigh, every brush of his skin against mine, a tether, a reminder that even in this foreign, controlled life, we are together. Hours apart feel like days as we cling to one another. When we finally pull back, breathless, I rest my head against his shoulder. His hand lingers on my belly, steady, grounding. "You're safe," he murmurs. "We're safe." I nod, letting the words sink in. A flutter from the baby echoes through me, and I whisper, "I love you." "I love you too," he replies, low and certain, as if the words themselves could shield us from everything outside these walls. He straightens, adjusts his shirt, gives me a last lingering look before stepping back. "I'll be back if you need me," he says softly. The door clicks shut behind him, leaving me alone with the silence. Alone, I wander through the suite again. The order, the quiet efficiency, the faint sterility. It would feel empty if I didn't carry the warmth of him with me. I touch my belly, whispering, "We're okay. He's here. We're safe." I sit on the couch, sip my now lukewarm tea, let the city lights twinkle below. Outside, it moves on. Indifferent. But inside, I feel chosen, loved, watched. Not in a way that suffocates, but in a way that makes me feel small, protected, and necessary all at once. And for the first time since we arrived, it occurs to me, this room doesn't just belong to him. I belong here too. For now. Secrets in plain sight. I followed Thabo into the corner of the hotel suite he called a study. The curtains were half closed, and the sun cut through them in thin lines, sharp and quiet. The air smelled a little like coffee in his cologne. both untouched. The AC hummed low. Late afternoon. Shadows lay long across the Persian rug under my feet. He was already at the desk, typing. His fingers moved fast, too fast for me to follow. His phone buzzed again and again against the wood, lighting up with words I couldn't read. I stepped closer. "Sit," he said without looking at me. I hesitated. My hand brushed the edge of the desk. There was a drawer there I had never opened. Locked. Solid, like it had always been that way. I lowered myself onto the small chair beside him and the bracelet on my wrist. My eyes moved from the keyboard to the phone to the messages I couldn't understand. "It's complicated," he said, still typing. That was all. Complicated how? Dangerous? Boring? I bit the inside of my cheek and placed my hand gently on my stomach. That was the only safe thing to touch. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, just kept typing. The room smelled of dust, faint coffee, and something metallic I couldn't name. I breathed slowly. I told myself I understood. I told myself it was fine. I told myself that if he was calm, then I should be calm too. Minutes passed. The phone buzzed again. He ignored it. Quiet. Efficient. I wondered if he noticed me noticing him. I thought of Ruth, of Grace, of the apartment I left behind, of the small, ordinary questions I used to ask without thinking, questions I couldn't ask now unless he decided they were safe. It's business, I told myself. He's protecting me. My stomach tightened. My hand twitched against it. Curiosity pulled at me, but something stronger held me back. A feeling that I could not cross this line. I sat up straighter. Nodded once to myself. Watch. Learn. No answers came. No danger either. Just a quiet, exact rhythm. I left the study the same slow way I had entered. Calm. Safe. Still wondering. Some things I wouldn't control. Some things maybe I wasn't meant to. Later, I sat in the low armchair at the edge of the living area. The lamp cast a soft yellow light. Music drifted from the hotel speakers, smooth jazz, low enough that I could still hear the hum of Thabo's phone buzzing every few seconds from the desk he had just left. He stood by the window with his back to me, speaking softly into the phone. The words came fast and clipped, in a language I couldn't place. The tilt of his head, the movement of his shoulders, it looked routine. He paused, glanced at me, a small twitch at the corner of his mouth, then turned away again. A staff member slipped in quietly, hands folded, bowing a little. "Sir, the documents." "Handled," Thabo said. Soft, firm. The staff member didn't argue. He left just as quietly, pulling the door shut. I folded my hands over my belly and pressed lightly. Warm, alive, safe. That was the one thing I knew for sure. Thabo moved toward the sofa, still talking, still half in that other world. His free hand made small gestures as he spoke. I watched him. I counted the seconds until the call ended. 2 minutes. 3, 7. He clicked the phone shut, breathed out, looked at me for just a moment. I nodded. He nodded back. No explanations. None needed. The coffee cup on the desk was still untouched. His phone lit up again. 10:17 p.m. Another message I couldn't read. My hand twitched against my stomach. "It's okay," I whispered inside myself. "It's okay. He's still here." Fear mixed with relief. I felt smaller, but protected. My eyes followed the closed doors, the quiet movement of staff, the shadows stretching along the walls. A minute later, he sat beside me, silent, closed his eyes for a second. His hand brushed mine by accident. Warm, safe, distant. Everything I didn't know, the control, the boundaries, all of it lived inside that small moment. I thought, I am learning, watching, waiting, involved without being asked. No danger, no chaos, just limits, invisible, exact, necessary. And for now, it was enough. Paradise escape. The sun reached the balcony a little after 10, warm enough that I slid my cardigan off my shoulders and let it fall over the chair. Breakfast was already done. 1 scrambled egg, 2 slices of toast with jam, tea still giving off steam. I had washed and folded my few clothes. My clinic bag sat by the door, zipped and ready. For a small moment, everything felt ordinary, like a morning I could have had anywhere. Then I saw Thabo. He stood by the window with a suitcase. Small, black, leather, the kind you carry onto a plane yourself. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me with that calm face that always makes my body pause before my mind does. "We're leaving today." I froze. The spoon hovered halfway to my mouth. Tea spilled onto the plate. "Where?" I asked. He tilted his head slightly. The smallest smile touched his mouth, enough to make me nervous and excited at the same time. "Maldives," he said. For a few days. I placed the spoon down carefully. Slow, like that gave me control. I checked my phone. Nothing. No messages, no emails, no warning. Just Ruth. Grace. Mother. Nothing that explained this. My stomach fluttered, half shock, half relief. I touched it. The baby shifted gently. The timing felt strange and perfect. I started packing. Slow. Careful. 3 pairs of shorts, 2 dresses, underwear folded small and neat, toiletries pushed into the pouch that never closes properly. My heart raced. My hands stayed steady. Thabo watched without commenting. Didn't tell me to hurry. Didn't tell me what to bring. Sunlight hit his face through the window. Sharp along his jaw. Quiet in his shoulders. Protective, present. Always present. I could feel the staff waiting outside the room. Not visible, just there. Soft shoes on marble. No one entered. No one asked anything. Everything was already planned. I glanced at him. He nodded once. Barely. Enough. I closed the suitcase. The zip sounded loud in the quiet room. I touched my stomach again and whispered, "We're going somewhere new, little one." He tilted his head toward the door. No words. Just now. I swallowed and stepped closer. My heart beat fast, fear mixed with excitement. He never promises safety. He shows it. We left the room with sunlight warming my back. I didn't know how the day would end. I only knew it wouldn't be the same. The airport lounge smelled like leather and polish. Sunlight cut across the marble floor in thin gold lines. Thabo walked ahead. I followed, my suitcase rolling quietly behind me. No lines, no noise. A uniformed man nodded, didn't meet my eyes. A boarding pass appeared in my hand. No words. I noticed the time, 1:17 p.m. Outside, a white jet waited alone on the tarmac. Thabo opened the cabin door. Inside smelled clean. Citrus, something sharp and expensive. The seats were wide enough to disappear into. I hesitated at the door. "Go ahead," he said. Low, calm, I stepped in, buckled my seatbelt. Click, leather against skin, sunlight flashing off metal. The window was huge, Kampala shrinking below us. My hand rested against the glass. Thabo sat beside me. His hand brushed mine once, just once, enough. He smelled like wood and spice, grounding. "Do you want water?" he asked. I shook my head, afraid my voice would shake too. The engines hummed, soft, steady. My fingers gripped the armrest, then moved to my stomach. The baby shifted. Again, perfect timing. Staff moved quietly. Trays appeared and vanished. Everything precise. Clouds stretched wide and endless outside. My chest felt tight. Awe, fear, excitement. I had left Uganda. Left what I knew. Left control. Thabo looked at me. No questions. No instructions. Just there. I whispered almost to myself, "We're really doing this." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I pressed my palm to the leather armrest, then to my belly. "We'll get there," I whispered. Safe. Sunlight poured across the cabin as the plane tilted, and that was when I realized I had been holding my breath the whole time. I let it out slowly, long, careful. For the first time, I felt fully inside his world. Not trapped, not unsafe. Managed, protected, chosen. The water appeared beneath us, so blue it didn't look real. Clear like glass, shining under the low sun. My stomach fluttered, not from the plane, but from disbelief. Light danced on the waves like small sparks thrown by God himself. Thabo leaned slightly toward me. His hand brushed mine. Warm, steady. I let my fingers stay there a second longer than necessary. The landing was smooth, too smooth. Water sprayed softly against the hull. I curled my bare toes against the floor, holding my balance, afraid to blink in case the whole thing disappeared. We stepped onto the floating dock. Warm wood under my feet. Salt in the air. Coconut. Something floral I couldn't name. I closed my eyes and breathed it in fully. My belly tightened. The baby stirred. Maybe feeling the change, maybe feeling me. When I opened my eyes, white villas stretched over the lagoon, standing on water like they belonged there. Boats drifted slowly between them. Near the shore, a private dinner waited. Lanterns glowing, white cloths, flowers arranged with too much care. Thabo watched my face closely. Calm, certain. He didn't ask anything. He didn't need to. I touched my belly again. "We're here, little one," I whispered. His hand rested on my lower back as he guided me forward. Not pushing, just steady, grounding. Staff followed at a distance, present, but careful not to exist too loudly. My breathing went uneven. Relief. Awe. A strange thrill twisting inside my chest. This place felt like someone else's dream, one I was allowed to step into, but not claim. I let my fingers brush the sand, let my toes sink into its warmth. I tried to remember everything, the colors, the smell, the sound of the water, afraid I might need to hold on to it later. My mind flickered to Uganda, to Ruth, to our small apartment. The clutter, the waiting. Here, nothing waited. Everything was planned, chosen. I felt safe. And under that safety, quiet and sharp, I felt the ache of my life being paused somewhere far away. Thabo took my hand and led me along the beach. The sun painted the sky gold and pink and soft orange, too beautiful to trust. We reached a small curve of sand, hidden by palms and water. I noticed staff at a distance, watching without watching, and swallowed a flicker of caution that melted into awe. He stopped and turned to me. "Look," he said softly, gesturing to the horizon. "Just us." Before I could speak, he knelt. The world narrowed. Sand. Water, him. The baby inside me. He opened a small velvet box. My heart slammed so hard I thought I might fall. The ring caught the last light of the sun and scattered it everywhere. My hands lifted without permission. My knees weakened. "Amina," he said, voice low, careful, almost reverent. "Will you marry me?" My mind emptied. There was only the ring, the waves, the sound of my own breathing, him kneeling there, offering me everything without explaining any of it. "Yes," I whispered. The word barely made it out. Tears came fast and hot. I laughed through them, breath-breaking. He slid the ring onto my finger, then stood and pulled me into his chest, careful, protective. My cheek pressed against him. My fingers went to my belly automatically. "We're safe," I whispered. Not to him. To myself. To the baby. "We're safe, little one." Time stretched. Waves moved in perfect rhythm. The sky deepened into colors that felt sacred, like they were made only for this moment. I looked at him, at the steadiness in his eyes, the quiet certainty, and something inside me finally let go. Staff stayed distant. Everything stayed controlled. And still, I didn't feel trapped. I felt chosen. Protected. Loved. I brushed a tear from my cheek and whispered to my belly, "You're part of this too. You're part of this love." And standing there, wrapped in gold light and salt air, far from the life I knew, I understood something clearly for the first time. He didn't just want me, he wanted us. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe it. I buckled my seatbelt at 14:37. The leather was cool under my fingers. The window shade stayed halfway down, and gold light spilled across my skirt in long stripes. I counted them without meaning to. 7. Then my hand went to my stomach. The baby was still small. Quiet, but present. A thin line tying me to the Maldives and to home at the same time. I didn't expect movement yet, but just knowing there was life there made my chest flutter. Thabo sat beside me, his index finger tracing the edge of a document on his lap. He hadn't spoken much since we boarded. I watched the way he held himself, the tilt of his head, the stillness in his shoulders, and I understood him without words. Protective, quiet, measured. "Do you want water?" the flight attendant asked softly, voice smooth, practiced. "No, thank you," I said, my fingers still resting on my belly. I tried to speak again anyway. "Do you think—" He glanced at me, calm, unbothered. "Relax. We're fine." I nodded, even though trust doesn't come easily to me. My fingers traced the small curve of my stomach again. The gold light caught a thin scar I often forgot was there, a reminder that I survive by being careful. Seat clicks. Air vents. Soft movements. 4 clicks each time. He adjusted things without speaking, and it struck me that maybe this was how he cared. No noise, no chaos, just steadiness. Outside, clouds drifted like none of this mattered. Inside, my breathing was counted, controlled. My heart beat too loud in my chest. I thought of my mother's face, sharp, doubting. She would ask why I didn't call, why I left, why I chose him. My stomach tightened, turbulence jolted the plane. I grabbed the armrest. Thabo didn't react at all. Somehow, that was enough. My eyes drifted to the folder across his lap. Family arrangements. 12 pages. I counted them. Would they see my pregnancy first? Would they hear about the Maldives before I could speak? My hand went back to my belly. I wasn't panicking. I was just noticing, counting, existing in the space between. The plane began its descent. Soon my parents would see me. They would see the baby. The Maldives was already behind me. Uganda waited. I didn't know what would be said first. But I knew this. He would be there, quiet, present, watching. The car slowed at 6:45. Dust lifted softly from the driveway. 5 rows of paving stones stretched ahead of us. Thabo's hand rested lightly on my knee. I straightened my skirt and pressed my fingers to my stomach. The baby shifted, barely there. Would my mother notice first? Or my father? The gate opened. Guards nodded at Thabo, boots shining, postures exact, everything measured, safe, controlled. Inside, the house smelled of dust, polished wood, and firewood from the kitchen. Long shadows stretched across the floor. Mother stood at the top of the stairs. Still, hands folded, eyes sharp, weighing me. I stepped out of the car. My heels clicked 4 times. 4. I dipped slightly. "Mother," I murmured. She inclined her head. No smile, no warmth, just acknowledgement. Father appeared beside her, hands in his pockets, mouth tight. He watched more than he spoke. "Inside," Mother said, already turning away. I followed. My heartbeat raced. The polished floor clung faintly to my heels, and I didn't brush it off. Thabo moved closer, his hand near mine, not touching. "Enough." "Is everything well?" Mother asked once we sat. Her voice was neutral but sharp underneath. "Yes," I said softly, my fingers still resting on my stomach. Father's eyes flicked to Thabo. Something passed between them. Something I didn't understand. Thabo's fingers brushed the back of my hand. Just once. "Do not panic." "And your condition," Mother pressed. "Are you keeping well?" "Yes," I replied, nodding. The baby moved then. I covered my stomach lightly, answering without words. Thabo cleared his throat. "We should discuss arrangements." Polite, calm, certain. The conversation shifted. Wedding, timing, logistics. Nothing about the Maldives. Nothing about the proposal. Nothing about love. Just facts. Measured, controlled. Mother leaned back in her chair, eyes sharp, calculating. Father shifted, adjusting his seat. Thabo listened. Said nothing. Nodded once. Protective. Controlled. I breathed slowly, in, out. I was safe, but small, and watched. The decision came the way I expected it would. Clean, careful. A small wedding. Immediate family only. Modest, proper, expected. My hand stayed on my belly the whole time. Relief came, but quietly. Measured. Love, yes. Approval, yes, but with conditions attached. I accepted them without argument. Dust lifted in the afternoon light as we left the hall. Thabo's hand brushed my back, just enough to steady me. Protective. Silent. Home smelled familiar, warm food, old wood, but the air felt cooler than I remembered. I touched my stomach again. Safe. Watched. Chosen. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the courtyard. Polished floors caught the light. Decorations glowed softly. I stood still while women helped me into the gomesi I had nervously tried on hours earlier. The colors were bold. Too bold. They hugged my body, rounding where it mattered. Today wasn't just about Thabo and me. It was about families. Approval. What we were allowed to become together. My hand moved to my belly. The baby stirred. "We're okay," I whispered. The courtyard filled slowly. Chairs arranged just right. Elders taking their places. Staff watching quietly from the edges. Women in bright gomesi murmured to one another. Men in crisp kanzu stood straight, attentive. My parents sat where everyone could see them. Mother watched everything. Father sat taller than usual, face unreadable. Thabo's hand found mine. Warm. Steady. "Shall we?" he murmured. I nodded and stepped forward, the weight of tradition, expectation, and new life pressing gently into my chest. The elders rose. Formal greetings began. This was the introduction. The real wedding, the one that mattered. Thabo's family asking for me. Bride price spoken of, gifts presented, cloth folded carefully, symbols of cows, respect, gratitude. My heart pounded as eyes settled on me. Elders watched, families waited. Drums began. The rhythm moved through the courtyard. Women swayed, men followed in grounded steps. The baby stirred again, responding, and I pressed my fingers over the movement. Blessings were spoken, advice given, words meant to guide us. Mother nodded once. Father tightened his jaw, then loosened it. Acceptance came slowly. But it came. "You're doing beautifully," Thabo whispered, barely moving his lips. I exhaled, just a little. Life here was structured, controlled, but it was ours to navigate, together. Applause closed the ceremony. I looked around. Faces filled with curiosity, judgment, approval. Cameras came out, photos were taken. Thabo never let go of my hand. Mother studied him closely, his calm, his certainty, his quiet authority. I squeezed his fingers, grateful for every unseen step he had taken to bring us here. The traditional wedding was complete. I was officially his, recognized, accepted. Relief washed through me, layered, soft, not without cost. Love was here, safety too, but both came with rules. Sunlight stretched across the courtyard, shadows lengthened. I pressed my hand to my belly once more. "We'll figure it out, little one." Thabo squeezed my hand in answer. For now, that was enough. I started with the wardrobe at exactly 10:17 in the morning. My fingers moved along the hangers one by one. Black skirt, gray blouse, the white cotton dress I wore to church last year. Each one I folded twice, slowly, making sure the edges lined up. My hand stopped at the hem of the dress. It still smelled faintly of Ruth's soap. I breathed it in, not to remember but to steady myself, to stay here. The small suitcase waited by the bed, leaning a little, like it already knew how much it would carry. I packed the clothes first, then the documents, passport in its plastic sleeve, visa receipts, hospital notes, Thabo's instructions printed neatly. I didn't read them again. I lined everything up carefully, labels facing the same direction. My fingers were shaking, but I folded anyway. Ruth passed through the room with a mug of coffee. "You sure you have everything?" she asked. Calm, quiet. I nodded. Almost. She didn't stay. She knows silence is what I need. I closed my eyes and listened to her footsteps disappear down the hallway. From the bottom drawer, I pulled out the old notebook Grace gave me when I first left home for university. One corner bent, pages 1 to 78 filled with notes, prayers, schedules. I touched it once. I wasn't crying, I was counting. I slipped it into the suitcase, folded carefully, maybe never to be opened again. I opened the checklist on my phone and rewrote it 3 times. Toothbrush, prenatal vitamins, maternity notes, hospital receipts, Ruth's small gift, each item tapped, checked, counted. Physically, I was ready. Emotionally, I wasn't sure that word applied. The suitcase clicked shut at 11:03 a.m., heavy, balanced. I ran my hand across the top. My stomach pressed gently against me, soft and round. The baby moved, a quiet, exact kick, a reminder that I was not alone. I looked around the room. Sunlight came through the thin curtains, warm but muted, bending shadows across the floor. My eyes stopped on the chair where I used to sit and read Thabo's letters. Once, I folded the corner of one and tucked it into my bag, like it could guide me. I sipped the water Ruth had left on the dresser. Cold, real, immediate. Checklist done, suitcase locked, documents inside the folder. Small fabric bundle tied. I breathed in, then out. 1, 2, steady. I didn't pack emotion. I left it behind. In the folds of the skirt, the notebook, the letters. I left nothing on my skin. I was ready. Almost. Because I knew I wouldn't see this room again. I stood in the living room with the suitcases at my feet. Dust floated through the sunlight like tiny clocks marking a time I could not return to. Ruth came in from the kitchen and rested her hands on her hips. "Coffee?" she asked. I nodded. We hugged. My stomach pressed against hers. The baby stirred. I stayed still. She didn't pull away. "Promise you'll call?" she murmured. "Daily," I whispered. I counted it twice. My phone vibrated. Grace. I put it on speaker. "Hey," she laughed softly. I could hear the worry under it. "Packed yet? Or still crying?" I bit my lip. My voice came out uneven. "Almost. Just almost." "I knew you'd overthink everything," she teased. I pressed a hand to my belly. "I'll be fine. We'll keep in touch." The apartment smelled like home. Brewed tea, bread cooling, soap from Ruth's hands. Familiar, safe. We hugged again. Quick, careful hugs. Not enough to break me, just enough to push me forward. I glanced once more at the bookshelf, the chair where I read Thabo's letters. This time, I didn't touch anything. I just looked. Grace's voice cracked a little. "I can't believe you're leaving tomorrow." "Me neither," I said softly. "Promise updates. Pictures? Even if it's just a quick text." I nodded, my thumb brushing the phone screen. I took one last look around the kitchen, then the living room. Sunlight lay softly across the floorboards. The air smelled like home and goodbye. My chest tightened. Not panic yet, just loss. Ruth leaned close and whispered, "You're going to be okay." I nodded, counting silently. 1, 2, 3. Enough. I lifted the suitcases, the handles pressed into my palms. Ruth followed me to the door. "Take care of you," she said. "You too," I whispered. I stepped outside. Grace waved from the phone screen, smiling through tears. I waved back. The door clicked shut behind me. Heavy. Final. Now it was just me, the suitcases, the sunlight, and the quiet. Almost ready for what came next. The taxi waited by the curb, engine humming like it already knew the weight it would carry. I stood there gripping the suitcase handles, palms slick, heart racing. I tried to slow my breathing. It wasn't really working. Ruth came up behind me and rested her hand briefly on my arm. "You'll be fine," she whispered. It was a small touch, but it was enough to remind me this wasn't forever. Outside, chaos rushed in all at once. My mother's voice broke. My father hovered nearby, unsure whether to hug me or scold me. My siblings argued over who would walk beside me, who would sit closest in the taxi. Grace squeezed my hand so tightly it almost hurt. Daniel tried to joke, but his eyes were shiny. Friends from school waved, wiping their faces. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even distant relatives I barely knew, crowded around me. Hugs, whispered blessings. Snacks pressed into my hands. Someone slipped me a small envelope. Money, they said. I knew it wasn't just money. It was love, worry, hope, guilt, all folded together. I lifted the bags again. They felt heavier than they should. Pregnancy fatigue settled into my bones, a dull nausea rising. I pushed through it. The street smelled of dust, exhaust, frying food. Horns honked in the distance, ordinary and loud, but everything felt far away, like I no longer belonged in the middle of it. I looked back. Ruth stood in the doorway, smiling bravely. Grace's fingers still clung to mine. Daniel stood stiff, pretending he was fine. The sunlight, the scratches on the table inside, the chair where I used to think about Thabo. All mine, all being left behind. Ruth hugged me tightly. "Take care of you," she murmured again. "You too," I whispered. My mother pressed her face into my shoulder, crying softly. My father placed his hand on my head, awkward but warm. My siblings pulled me in different directions, each wanting the last joke, the last wave. I placed the final bag into the trunk. The taxi driver nodded politely. I climbed in carefully. The seat pressed against my thighs, against my stomach. The baby stirred. My hand moved instinctively over the bump. My heart squeezed. The engine started. The wheels rolled over uneven road. I watched everyone on the sidewalk, waving, shouting, laughing, and crying at the same time. My whole world spilling out into the street. And I was leaving it. I breathed in deeply and thought about what waited ahead. Thabo at the airport. South Africa. Guards. Schedules. Routines I didn't know yet. Fear tightened my chest. And something else, too. A strange, quiet excitement. I leaned down and whispered to my baby, low and steady. "We're gonna be okay. I promise." The streets blurred past the window. I felt like I wasn't just leaving a city or a family. I was leaving the life where I was just me. Soon everything would be managed, watched, even love would be structured. I closed my eyes and counted my breaths. Resolve settled slowly inside my chest. You can do this. Stay composed. He will be there. The taxi wove through traffic. I gripped the edge of the seat. Sun warmed my face. I told myself the truth, quietly and clearly. This was the beginning of a new world. One where I was safe, chosen, and completely alone in ways I had never known before. The taxi dropped me at Entebbe just before noon, when the sun was sharp enough to make people squint before they even stepped inside. The moment I entered the terminal, everything turned white and loud at once. Fluorescent lights buzzing above, shiny floors throwing back reflections of legs and luggage, voices bouncing off glass and metal. An announcement echoed, then stopped halfway through, like someone changed their mind. I came out of the car with one suitcase and my handbag. The guard Thabo assigned walked half a step behind me. He didn't touch me. He didn't hurry me. He just scanned. I knew his name. I didn't use it. This was the first place Thabo hadn't walked me through himself, and that thought sat heavy in my chest as we moved toward the entrance. I paused there. Not long. Just long enough to tighten my grip on the suitcase handle and remind myself I wasn't lost. I told myself that twice. The guard leaned in slightly. "Madam, this way," he said. The same way someone says mind the step. Like it was routine, like there was no space for doubt. Inside, everything moved fast. Families arguing in low voices. Men dragging boxes wrapped in plastic. A woman crying into her phone near the wall. The air smelled like coffee, perfume, and something fried. I thought of Ruth standing in the doorway that morning, watching me zip my suitcase like she wanted to memorize the sound. I didn't look back now. There was nothing to look back at. At check-in, the line was long. The guard stood close enough that people noticed him and stepped around us instead of into us. No one asked questions. When it was my turn, the woman behind the counter looked at my passport, then at me, then briefly at my belly. Not obvious, just a pause that told me she saw. Destination? Johannesburg. Purpose of travel? I opened my mouth, closed it again. I heard Thabo's voice from 2 nights before. Precise, calm, don't explain, just answer. Family, I said. She typed. The keyboard sounded loud in the quiet moment. Then she looked up. Is this your first time traveling alone? I didn't know why she asked. I didn't know if it mattered. Yes. She nodded like she expected it and slid my boarding pass toward me. First class. The paper felt thicker than usual. I noticed that immediately. I also noticed my hands shaking when I took it. The guard stepped slightly ahead as we moved towards security. He didn't rush, but he set the pace, and people followed it without realizing they were. At immigration, the officer flipped through my passport slowly. Too slowly. He looked at the visa, then my face, then the guard, then back at me. Who packed your bags? I did. Are you carrying anything for someone else? No. He studied me like he was deciding whether to believe that. My heart started counting. 1, 2, 3, then the stamp came down. Sharp. Final. I exhaled and only realized I'd been holding my breath after it was over. Past security, the terminal opened into shops and screens and people sitting on their bags like they were afraid someone would take them. Near the window, a woman laughed with her daughter. The child pressed her face to the glass and left a mark. Without thinking, I rested my hand on my stomach. We're okay, I told the baby, silently. I'd learned when to keep things inside. The guard stopped a few steps from the gate. I will be seated nearby, he said. If you need anything, inform the crew. I nodded. I didn't ask how nearby was. Boarding was delayed 15 minutes. No explanation. People complained softly. I sat and watched the departure board change colors while the guard stood, eyes on the crowd instead of me. That was when it became clear. I wasn't unprotected. I was just not accompanied. When boarding was called, my group went first. The line was short. A woman behind me whispered something to her partner and laughed. I didn't turn around. At the aircraft door, I paused again, just long enough to touch my stomach once more. Not because I was brave, because there wasn't another option. Inside, the cabin was quiet and soft, too soft, like a room waiting to see how I would behave in it. I found my seat and sat down. The plane hadn't moved yet, but I already felt the distance. The seat was too big for me. It swallowed my body, wide, soft, smelling faintly of leather and something clean I couldn't name. I kept adjusting myself, afraid I would sit wrong, break something, or look like I didn't belong. I buckled my seatbelt, then checked it again. Even before we moved, my heart raced like we were already falling. I pressed my palm to my stomach, slow and careful. It's okay, I whispered. We're just flying. The calm felt unreal. No shouting, no fighting for space, no crying children, just low voices, soft footsteps, the steady hum of air. I had thought first class would feel exciting. Instead, it felt like being alone in a beautiful room where no one explained the rules. A flight attendant leaned in with a practiced, kind smile and offered me water. I nodded too fast. The glass was heavy and cold in my hands, and when she walked away, I realized they were shaking. I glanced back, just enough to see the guard's eyes flick toward me. Not staring, just checking, making sure I was still there. Thabo had told me he'd arranged everything. Just follow instructions, he'd said, brushing his thumb over my cheek. You won't be alone. But I was alone now. Alone in the way that mattered. The engines roared, low at first, then louder. The vibration moved through the seat and straight into my chest. My mouth went dry. I pressed my back into the cushion and gripped the armrests like they could hold the plane together. When we lifted, my stomach dropped hard, like missing a step. For a terrifying second, I thought I might throw up right there in front of everyone who looked so composed. I closed my eyes and breathed the way the nurse had taught me. Slow in, slower out. I imagined Thabo's hand on my back. Firm, certain. I imagined Ruth laughing, calling me dramatic. I imagined Grace's calm voice asking if I packed snacks. The plane leveled out. The pressure eased. My heart slowed, just a little. When I opened my eyes, clouds stretched below us like cotton, soft, harmless, like nothing bad could hide in them. I almost laughed at myself. Later, food arrived on a neat tray, things I didn't recognize. I picked at it for the baby's sake and sipped ginger tea the attendant insisted would help with nausea. It did, enough that my body stopped feeling like it was turning against me. Still, every small sound made me tense. A bump, a dip. I froze each time, fingers curling into the armrest, waiting for someone to announce something terrible. No one did. People around me read, slept, watched movies. One man laughed softly at his screen. I wondered how they could be so calm, thus floating this high above the world, trusting a machine and strangers with their lives. Maybe this was what money did. It made danger feel distant. I cautiously explored the buttons by my seat. When it reclined smoothly and lifted my legs, I let out a surprised breath. For a moment, I felt silly, almost happy. Like a child discovering a secret. I touched my belly again. Slower now. See, I murmured, we're fine. But Johannesburg kept slipping into my thoughts. The way Thabo said the name. Solid. Heavy. Permanent. I imagined gates, tall walls, men with guns who didn't smile, rules I didn't know yet, mistakes I could make without realizing. I wondered where he was right now. Probably not surrounded by strangers. Probably not in a seat like this. That thought unsettled me more than the turbulence. At one point, the plane shook hard enough that a few people gasped. My heart slammed into my throat. I grabbed the armrest and didn't let go until it stopped. When it did, the guard looked back again. Our eyes met. He gave a small nod. That was all. I hated how much it calmed me. Hours passed in pieces. I slept. Woke. Slept again. I dreamed of doors closing quietly and someone calling my name from far away. When I woke for the last time, my neck ached and my back was stiff. But the fear had dulled into something manageable. A low hum instead of a scream. When the lights brightened and the captain announced our descent, my chest tightened again. Not with fear of flying, but with something heavier. This was really happening. I was crossing into his world now. Not visiting. Not pretending. I smoothed my skirt, gathered my things, checked that my passport was still in my bag. It was. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Almost there, I whispered to my stomach. I didn't know yet what there would cost me. Arrival in Johannesburg. I landed in Johannesburg just after 4 in the afternoon. I knew because I checked the clock above the gate twice, then again near the restroom. Like the time might change if I stopped watching it. The light coming through the tall windows was sharp and pale, not like Kampala light. This one didn't soften anything. It showed every edge. Everything here felt exposed. I walked off the plane alone. Everyone does, technically. But it felt different when I was pregnant, carrying one small bag, and no one was waiting on the other side. My lower back ached from the flight. My feet were swollen enough that I noticed every step. I kept my pace slow. Rushing always brought the nausea back. The arrival hall was loud in a controlled way, not chaos. Organized noise. Suitcases clicking over tile. Announcements repeating in a voice that didn't care whether you understood it. Coffee brewing somewhere nearby. Something fried. Something sweet. The smell sat heavy in my throat. I followed the signs for immigration without remembering deciding to. My feet moved before my mind did. I'd learned how to let my body handle things my thoughts were too tired to argue with. The line was long. I stood behind a woman in a blue coat and a man scrolling hard on his phone. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. Then again. I stopped when I realized I'd done it 4 times in under a minute. I rested one hand on my stomach, not because it hurt, because it was there, because touching it made everything else feel more solid. The baby shifted. Or maybe that was my imagination. Either way, it steadied me. I repeated a list in my head. Passport, visa letter, return ticket printout, phone charged, emergency numbers saved. Thabo said he'd be here. I didn't know where here was yet. But he said it. The line crawled forward. I rehearsed answers without moving my lips. Purpose of visit. How long? Where I'd stay. I'd said them so many times they felt memorized, like lines for a play I never auditioned for, but somehow got cast in anyway. When it was my turn, the officer didn't smile. He didn't frown either. He looked at me the way people do when they're trained not to be interested. His uniform was crisp. His desk was clean. There was a small scuff mark on the floor near his chair. My eyes kept going back to it. Passport. I handed it over with both hands. No one taught me to do that. It just felt right. He flipped through it slowly. Too slowly. Each page sounded louder than the last. He looked up at me, then down at my stomach, then back at the passport. Purpose of visit? Visiting my fiancé, I said. The words still felt borrowed, like I was holding it for someone else. He typed. The keyboard clicked sharply in the space between us. How long will you be staying? A few months, I said, then added, because silence made me nervous. Depending. Depending on what? I hesitated half a second too long. Medical, I said, and family. He studied me again, longer this time. Where will you be staying? I gave the address Thabo sent 2 days ago. I'd memorized it the way I memorized my student number back home. I didn't say the estate name. Saying it out loud felt like inviting questions I didn't have answers for. Do you have proof of return travel? Yes. I slid the paper forward. My hand shook slightly. Not enough to be obvious. Enough for me to notice. He read it. Typed again. The cursor blinked on his screen, like it was waiting for him to decide something important. The nausea rose suddenly. Hot. Sharp. I focused on my breathing. In through my nose. Out through my mouth. I imagined Ruth telling me not to panic before exams. Grace laughing, saying I overthink everything. My mother's silence on the phone yesterday. The way she said my name like it already belonged to the past. The stamp came down hard. Loud. Final. Welcome to South Africa. That was it. No warning, no advice, no concern. I took my passport and stepped away before he could change his mind. My legs felt light, like I'd been walking on a moving surface for too long. I stopped just past the desk and leaned against the wall, pretending to adjust my bag while my heart caught up. I was in. The thought didn't feel triumphant. It felt heavy. The arrivals hall was louder. Messier. Names shouted across the space. Signs lifted high over heads. Children crying. Someone laughing too loudly into a phone. I scanned faces without meaning to. Thabo wasn't there. I told myself not to panic. He said he'd handle everything. He said someone would meet me if he couldn't. He said not to worry. My chest tightened anyway. I stood near a pillar and waited. 5 breaths. Then 10. I checked my phone. Nothing. I noticed 2 men in dark suits near the glass doors. No signs, no talking, just watching people pass. Calm. Practiced. One of them glanced at me, not staring, just noting. I looked away immediately and felt foolish for it. My hand went back to my stomach. I'm here, I thought. Not to the baby, to myself. The sliding doors opened and the space expanded all at once. Noise first, then light. Then my phone vibrated. 1 message. No words. Just a location pin. A black dot. Stay where you are. I stayed. 2 uniformed staff reached me before I could decide whether obeying a dot on a screen made sense. A man and a woman in matching blue jackets. The woman smiled like this was routine. Ms. Nabirye? I nodded. Please come with us. One of them took my carry-on without asking. Not rude, just efficient. We didn't move toward the crowd. We cut left, past a rope barrier I hadn't noticed, into a side corridor that smelled faintly of disinfectant and rubber wheels. The noise dropped behind us. Not silence. Controlled quiet. I counted turns without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. A door opened with a keycard swipe. The man didn't slow down. Outside, the light was softer. Late afternoon. A black SUV waited, polished enough to reflect the sky. 2 men stood near it in dark suits. Not airport suits, clean shoes, still posture. One of them scanned the area like he already knew where everything was. Then I saw Thabo. He was leaning against the open rear door, phone in his hand. He looked up before they finished escorting me, like he felt the moment I crossed an invisible line. Airports didn't seem to touch him. Relief hit me first, sharp, immediate. Then awe. Then a thin thread of fear I ignored. You're here, he said. Not a question. I nodded. He looked at me properly. My shoes, my hands, my posture, my stomach. His eyes moved like he was checking items off a list. When he looked at my belly, his jaw tightened slightly. Control. Not panic. How was your flight? Fine, I said. Just tired. He accepted it. His hand settled on my arm. Light pressure, directional. I stopped swaying without realizing I was. Let's get you home. One of the men opened the door wider before Thabo even gestured. Another took my bag and placed it inside, aligned carefully. I noticed he chose the left side. I didn't know why that mattered, but it did. Thabo guided me in with a hand at my back. The seat was leather. Cool. Firm. The door closed with a heavy sound. Locks clicked. I heard them because I was listening for everything now. The engine hummed. 2 men sat in front. No radio, no conversation. We pulled away smoothly. The airport slipped past in fragments, then disappeared. Thabo exhaled once. You did well, he said. With immigration? With everything. His hand rested on my knee. Not tentative, not possessive, just there. I placed my hand over his. My fingers felt smaller than I remembered. The roads widened, then narrowed. Signs blurred. Walls grew taller. Distances stretched. Everything felt unfamiliar. Is it far? I asked. Not too. We turned more than necessary. The city thinned quietly. Walls became gates. Green trimmed so evenly it looked artificial. I rested my palm on my stomach. Thabo noticed immediately. You okay? Yes. If you feel sick, tell me. I will. The man in the passenger seat spoke in a language I didn't understand. Thabo answered without looking at him. The car changed lanes immediately. I didn't ask why. I started counting minutes, then stopped when I realized I was doing it just to feel anchored. Why are there so many of them? I asked. Security, he said. Standard. For me? For us. The gate opened before we stopped. Thabo didn't look at it. He never had to. The space responded to him automatically. Inside, the road smoothed. Trees lined both sides. Houses sat far apart behind walls that looked more expensive than my entire childhood. This is it, he said. The house waited. Lights already on. Guards stepped forward. One opened my door before I reached for it. The air felt cooler, controlled. Thabo's hand touched my elbow. Easy. Inside, everything was clean. Quiet, intentional. High ceilings, no photos, no clutter. Readiness. This is your room, he said. My room, not ours. Schedules were explained. Deliveries, cleaners, doctors already arranged. He told me not to worry. Then he checked his watch. I'll be back later. He kissed my forehead and left. The house absorbed his absence instantly. I sat on the bed, firm, supportive. My phone buzzed. Ruth asked if I'd landed. I typed, yes, I'm okay. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel trapped. I felt managed, protected by walls I didn't ask for. Loved in a way that was organized. I placed both hands on my stomach and breathed slowly. We're okay, I whispered. The house stayed quiet. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city kept moving. Inside, everything waited for me to learn how to belong. Nothing looked lived in. The curtains were half open, pale lines of light slipping through, as if someone had decided exactly how much sun I was allowed this early. Morning moved slowly here. The light crept across the marble floor, soft and careful, stopping just before the walls. I sat up and waited for a sound. Anything that would tell me I wasn't alone. There was nothing. Thabo had left before I woke. I knew because his side of the bed was untouched, too neat. A faint trace of his cologne hung in the air, hurried, deliberate. My phone had no message. Just the time. 6:42 a.m. Back in Uganda, mornings were loud. Boda engines, voices calling out, Ruth shouting at the kettle like it had personally offended her. Here, I could hear my own breathing. I slid my feet onto the marble. Cold, even through the slippers placed neatly beside the bed. I didn't remember putting them there. I didn't remember anyone coming in. I told myself that was normal. I walked slowly, unsure where I was allowed to walk fast. The thought arrived fully formed, and I didn't question it. My robe was wrapped tight. One hand went to my stomach without thinking. The kitchen looked exactly as it had the night before. Spotless. Counters bare. Nothing out of place. It didn't feel like a kitchen. It felt like a picture of one. A woman I didn't know was already there, placing something into the fridge. She heard me immediately. Everyone here did. "Good morning, madam," she said, turning halfway. No smile. Just polite neutrality. Like a door opening when it was meant to. "Good morning," I said. My voice sounded smaller than usual. She waited. I realized she was waiting for instruction. I had none. She finished what she was doing and stepped aside, leaving space between us. An invisible line I didn't cross. I opened the fridge. Everything was arranged by size and color, labels facing forward. Fruits in their own compartments. I didn't recognize most of the brands. I closed it. Instead, I made tea. It felt safe to choose something I could get wrong without consequence. The kettle was heavy. I filled it carefully, afraid of spilling on anything expensive. When it clicked on, the sound felt impossibly loud. I leaned against the counter, heart racing, one palm pressed to my stomach, breathing until it slowed. "We're okay," I whispered. I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. The tea was ready. I poured it into a cup that felt too thin to belong to me and carried it to the dining table. 8 chairs. I chose the corner, not the head. The chair was heavier than it looked. I sat and sipped slowly. The only word I could find for the taste was expensive. Someone moved behind me. I finished my sip before turning. A staff member passed quietly, nodded once, and kept going. No one asked what I wanted to do today. No one told me what was expected. That was worse. I wandered into the living room, careful not to touch too much. The couch looked like something you sat on with permission. The windows faced the estate, but the view felt distant. High walls, trees trimmed into obedience. No neighbors in sight. I wondered if they could see me. I stopped at a door that looked like every other door. I didn't touch the handle. I didn't know how I knew. I just did. Back in the bedroom, I opened my suitcase. Half unpacked, my things looked smaller, less important. I took out my toiletries and lined them up in the bathroom cabinet by height, the way I always did when I was nervous. I swallowed my prenatal vitamins dry. In Uganda, Ruth would have reminded me. Here, no one noticed. Freedom for 2 seconds. Then the thought followed. No one notices if I forget. I sat on the edge of the bed, hand resting on my stomach. Daddy's working, I whispered. He'll be back. I checked the time. 9:10 a.m. I didn't know when Thabo ate. I didn't know if he expected me to eat. I didn't know if it mattered. There was a knock. Gentle. Just enough. Yes? The woman from the kitchen stood there holding a small tray. Fruit? Toast. Something else I couldn't name. For you, she said. Thank you. She didn't move. 4. Now? I asked. My voice felt small again. Yes, madam. She left. I ate because the food was there. Because my body needed it. Because refusing felt like making a decision I didn't fully understand. I counted bites without meaning to. Halfway through, it hit me. No one had told me where Thabo was, when he would be back, what he was doing, if I was supposed to wait for him before doing anything else. I told myself this was normal. He was busy. Important people were always busy. This was what being taken care of looked like. I started memorizing the sounds of the house. Footsteps. Doors opening and closing, voices I couldn't hear clearly, the steady rhythm of other people working around me. By the time the tray was cleared, I'd made a quiet list in my head. I could eat. I could sleep. I could walk where I'd already walked. I could talk on the phone, quietly. Everything else I should probably ask about. I leaned back and folded my hands. The house hummed around me. Efficient, distant. I felt safe and aware that I was waiting for instructions that might never come. Later, the light shifted. Sun higher now, shadows shorter. The morning tray was gone. Groceries appeared. Bread, eggs, fruit I didn't recognize, yogurt in glass jars. There was a small note, for today's meals. Polite, precise. I read it twice. My fingers lingered on the vitamin bottle's smooth, cold glass. My stomach tightened. I'm doing this, I told myself. I am. The housekeeper moved between the counters, arranging everything while I watched. How do you want the fruit? She asked. Sliced, I said. The word felt small. My words didn't carry much weight here. She smiled, just barely, and sliced the fruit, lining each piece neatly. I set the table myself. Same corner, same rhythm. Plates aligned, cutlery straight, glasses placed carefully. The kettle clicked, I sipped slowly, counted. 6, 7, 8. We are safe, I murmured to my stomach. For now, we are safe. My hand rested heavier on my belly this time, as if someone unseen was listening. A man passed the window. Security. No glance, just a shadow, a pause, then gone. Enough to remind me I was being watched, protection or control. I didn't know yet. I prepared lunch. Eggs, toast, fruit. I tasted everything. Nothing was wrong. I noted the boiling time, the way the knife fit my hand. Small victories. Staff moved around me silently, always observing. I straightened napkins even though no one asked me to. I washed the dishes carefully. 15 pieces, exactly. Anything less or more would have been wrong. By the time I sat again, afternoon was leaning in. I'd memorized which rooms opened and which stayed closed, which floors creaked, which stayed silent. The estate hummed, polished, efficient, distant. I felt capable. Small, but capable. My phone buzzed. Ruth, how are you today? I replied carefully, smiling at my own words. Good. Learning the rhythm. Baby and I are fine. I set the phone down. The house was mine to navigate, not mine to change. I closed my eyes, hand on my stomach. Footsteps. Doors. Faint clatter from the kitchen. All precise. All controlled. I was safe. I was watched. I was learning. I didn't like how dependent I felt, but I knew I could follow the rhythm. I could prove I belonged here without overstepping. For now, that was enough. The sun shifted again. Shadows lengthened. Staff glided past like ghosts. I sipped tea and whispered, "We can do this. For now, we can do this." And I believed it. Just a little. I sank into the sofa, letting it swallow me just enough. Sunlight spilled across the polished floor, bright stripes stretching toward the edges of the estate. Lawns outside were trimmed into perfection. I traced the seam of the cushion. Breakfast. Dishes. Small victories. All perfect. All measured. The house was quieter than I'd imagined. Staff floated like shadows, eyes flicking only slightly when I noticed. I touched my belly. The little life inside shifted awake. "We're okay," I whispered. "I hope he's okay." A book lay open in my lap, unread. A guard passed outside. No acknowledgement. Enough. My phone buzzed again. Ruth? Grace. My mother. Carefully, I replied, "We're fine. Baby and I are learning the rhythm." I rocked slightly without thinking, soothing something the house's perfection couldn't touch. Doors opened. Doors closed. Locked doors. Quiet reminders. "We can do this," I whispered. "For now, we can do this." For the first time that afternoon, I believed it. Or pretended hard enough to make it stick. Time stretched. Staff continued their silent choreography. Tiny inconsistencies made my heart flutter, then settle. I closed my eyes. I felt him. Not his voice, not his footsteps, but the space he left behind. Thabo. A presence I could feel but couldn't touch. I hugged my belly closer. "We are safe," I whispered. "He will come back." The room held its silence. My breathing filled it. Slow, deliberate. I was small. The house was vast. And I was learning how to exist inside it. How to move without overstepping. How to wait without despair. The sun tilted lower. Shadows crept. I had survived the afternoon alone. Not just survived, adapted. Just enough. Every comfort here carried the same reminder. Freedom came with rules, and every rule had eyes. I rocked slightly again. We're okay. And I waited. Mid-morning. I stepped into the bedroom from the kitchen, my hands still damp from washing the teacups. I wanted to unpack a few documents. Maybe read the letters Ruth and Grace had slipped into my bag. Maybe check the immigration forms I carried all the way from Uganda. I opened the desk drawer. Empty. I stopped, counted my breaths. 3, 4, 5. "Where is it?" I said quietly. More to the room than to anyone else. I checked my handbag on the bed. Nothing. The drawer under the side table. Still nothing. My fingers brushed the smooth, cool leather of the desk. My stomach tightened. My hands shook, not enough to be obvious. Enough for me to notice. A faint knock. "Madam?" The voice was soft, careful, respectful. I nodded without thinking, gesturing for them to come closer. "My passport," I said, calm, too calm. "Where is it?" "It's safe, madam," the staff member said. Their eyes dropped to the floor. Their fingers curled around the tray they were holding. "Taken care of." My hand went to my stomach, thumbs pressing lightly. "Taken care of? How?" "Just for safekeeping, madam." I swallowed. My chest tightened, a low hum of panic starting to rise, but my voice stayed even. Safekeeping by whose authority? The pause stretched. No answer. Only the steady hum of the air conditioning. The clean smell of polish hanging in the corners of the room. I breathed in, told myself it was for safety. He wouldn't let anything happen to me. I knew it was rationalizing, but it helped. The staff member stepped forward and placed my passport on the edge of the bed. Thin, blue, familiar. Then they stepped back almost silently and left. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands. Relief came first. Sharp, real, then unease, safe. But watched, monitored. Dependence settled heavy in my chest, suddenly solid, suddenly undeniable. I placed the passport carefully in the top drawer, closed it slowly, stepped back, my fingers still resting on my belly. In the bright lines of sunlight on the floor, a question stayed with me. What else would be taken from me? Without asking? The sun was warmer when I stepped onto the path near the service entrance. I'd asked the staff to take out the laundry, and they'd left it by the gate. It gave me a reason to be outside. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass. I noticed everything. The sharp clack of the gate hinge, the low murmur of a radio on a guard's belt, the sprinklers shutting off one by one. A man in a dark uniform stood near the gate, arms folded, his face half in shadow. "Good afternoon," I said. He nodded once. Polite. Neutral. His eyes stayed on me. "I just wanted to step outside for a moment," I added, careful with my tone. "Please let us know before you go outside, madam," he said, firm, empty of emotion. I nodded. "Of course." I stepped onto the gravel path slowly, carefully. The garden opened up around me, wide, green, almost free. Birds chirped somewhere above the jacaranda trees. Then I saw it. A small camera tucked into the corner of the fence. Then another. Hands on my stomach, I whispered, "It's fine. They're only watching because it's dangerous. For me." The guard shifted slightly. Still watching. Not intruding. Just there. I walked down the path, each step measured, heels crunching softly on the gravel. Nothing here was truly mine. Not the air, not the sun, not even the grass under my feet. At the end of the marked path, I stopped and looked back. The house stood pristine and distant. Staff moved inside like shadows. My chest tightened. Panic fluttered at the edges of my ribs. I breathed in, slow, controlled, On the way back, the garden smelled sweeter, but the unease stayed. Observation and restriction woven together so tightly I couldn't tell where one ended. At the gate, the guard stepped aside. "Thank you, madam." I nodded again, eyes down, careful not to look at the cameras. Inside. Door closed softly behind me. My hands stayed on my belly. My heart stayed a little fast. The garden had been beautiful, but watched. Freedom, here, came in lines and rules. I carried my tea into the lounge, balancing the delicate cup and my thoughts. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, painting pale stripes across the carpet. Everything smelled faintly of polish and a perfume I couldn't name. Two women sat across the room, angled toward each other. Their voices were low, polite, their laughter soft. It made me feel separate. A staff member leaned in near the doorway and whispered, "Don't speak to them, madam." I nodded, small, stiff. I moved to an empty chair. My heart beat harder. I wanted to sit closer, to hear their words clearly, maybe even answer. I didn't. I obeyed. I settled into the chair and cradled the cup, warmth seeping into my hands. I watched them instead. One brushed her hair behind her ear. The other smoothed her dress over her knees. They talked about gardening, about tea, ordinary things, and yet it felt like a world I wasn't allowed to enter. I sipped slowly, pretending to study the pattern on the cup. My chest tightened. Why was I so aware of the space between us, of the silence I wasn't allowed to break? The staff member's eyes flicked toward me. A reminder. Gentle. Firm. My shoulders slumped just slightly. Time stretched. A chair scraped softly. Silver clinked against porcelain. I wanted to reach out, just a word, a smile, but it was a risk I couldn't take. After a few minutes, I set the cup down. My hands feel heavier than before. My belly reminds me to be careful, to follow rules I don't remember agreeing to, rules I didn't even know existed. I stand. I nod politely at the women. Not an invitation, just acknowledgement. Respect without closeness. Then I turn toward the door. The hallway outside feels wider, freer. And still, I know I'm being watched, guided, measured. This estate is a map I didn't draw. Luxury stretches wide here, yes, but it is shaped, structured, fenced. Not just with gates and guards, but with invisible lines you're expected to sense before you cross them. I walk away quietly. The warmth of tea lingers in my chest. My stomach stays tight. The small rebellions, the ones I imagine but don't act on, feel like treasures locked behind glass. Visible. Untouchable. Upstairs is almost too quiet. Dim light spills from wall lamps, stretching long shadows across the carpet. My slippers make no sound. I walk slowly, listening for staff, for footsteps, for anything that tells me where I'm allowed to be. There are faint sounds, doors closing somewhere, a distant murmur, enough to remind me I'm not alone. I probably shouldn't be here, but curiosity, simmering since the lounge, is louder than obedience right now. The women, the garden, the passport. They've left a small, sharp question inside me. What else is hidden here? What else isn't meant for me? At the end of the corridor, a door catches my eye. Darker wood, heavier, polished just enough to stand apart. My hand hovers over the handle. My heart speeds up. The baby flutters like a warning. Just a little, I tell myself, just to see. I push. The door gives slightly. My stomach twists, fear and excitement tangled together. Then, "Ma'am, this area is off limits." The voice is calm, firm. I spin around. A staff member stands there, expression smooth, eyes sharp, watching. I drop my hand, heat rushes to my face. I'm sorry, I whisper. My voice betrays me. No scolding, just a small gesture back toward the corridor. "Please, ma'am, this way." I nod. Swallow hard. I walk back carefully, each step measured. Every part of me wants to look back, to imagine what's behind that door. I don't. Back in the familiar hallway, I press my hand to my stomach and breathe out slowly. The thrill fades, frustration stays. Even here, my home now, there are spaces I can't claim, boundaries I can't cross. Luxury and safety feel heavy when every movement is watched, counted, corrected. "It's okay," I whisper to the baby. "We'll be careful. We're safe, I think." And still, something inside me aches for the freedom I used to have. Rooms I could enter without asking, curiosity without consequence. The living room is dim, lit by soft amber lamps. I step in cautiously, my fingers brushing the edge of the couch to steady myself. Thabo is there, sitting in his usual chair, calm, grounded, certain in a way I've never been. He looks up. Relief hits me first, then nerves. "Sit," he says. Firm. I lower myself into the chair opposite him. My hands rest on my belly. The baby moves faintly, reminding me of the weight of everything I carry now. I know today was confusing, he says. His voice is even, deliberate, like he's laying out a plan. The rules, the restricted areas, the limits, they aren't meant to frustrate you. They're for your safety. For us. I nod. My throat tightens. I want to ask why, in so many ways, but his gaze and my fear keep me still. I whisper. I don't always know what I can or can't do. He shifts closer without standing. His presence fills the space. I know, he says. Everything here. The guards, the cameras, the rules, it's not to control you. It's to protect you, the baby, and me, from mistakes I can't afford. The words are soft, careful, almost tender, protection, love, and limits wrapped so neatly I almost miss the edge. I know you mean well, I say quietly. It just feels strange, being watched, guided. It's hard to get used to. He smiles, not down at me, not over me, just steady. It will feel strange at first, but you'll learn. Every rule, every guard, every restriction, it's all about keeping you safe, keeping us safe. I look down at my hands. They're trembling. I touch my belly again. It's okay, I whisper, more to myself than anyone. When I look up, his certainty meets me. Solid, unshaken. This is his world, one I don't yet know how to move in. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe leaning on him is enough. I nod once, careful. Surfmal, I understand. I'll comply. He leans back, satisfied, like my silence had everything he needed. I sit there a moment longer, breathing slowly. The room warm, the lamps soft, his presence steady. The rules are clear, obedience is expected, protection is promised, and still, a quiet question settles deep in my chest. At what cost? I stayed quiet in the back seat of the estate car. Security sat beside me, saying nothing. My fingers moved along the edge of my scarf, slow, nervous. The clinic was empty. No other patients. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, thin lines cutting across the tiled floor. The guard opened the door. My shoes clicked as I stepped out. The smell hit me immediately. Strong, sharp antiseptic that burned the back of my throat. Room 3, he said. I nodded. The examination table was cold when I sat. The paper crinkled under me. Without thinking, my hands went to my belly. I pressed lightly, feeling the roundness, the curve. Sometimes the baby moved. Sometimes it didn't. I counted anyway. The doctor came in with a brief, professional smile. Good morning. Blood pressure first? I nodded again. Her fingers tightened around my arm. The machine ticked slowly. My pulse sounded loud in my ears. Outside, the guard shifted his weight, just a little. His eyes flicked toward the door, then straight ahead again. I stiffened. He was there, which meant Thabo already knew I was here. He knew my appointment time. He would know my blood pressure, my results. Everything. Everything looks normal today, the doctor said. Her voice was flat, polite, no warmth, no comfort. I adjusted myself on the table, pushed my hair back, tried to breathe past the disinfectant smell. My stomach fluttered. I imagined him knowing whether I was calm, whether I was tense, knowing I was here, open, exposed. The doctor stepped out to check something. Silence filled the room. I folded my hands over my belly. The sunlight lines now felt like bars. Back home in Uganda, I would have leaned forward, asked questions, said something more. Here, I stayed still, hands folded, thoughts folded, waiting. The door clicked again, low voices outside, a name I didn't recognize, urgency in the tone, authority. I pressed my hands tighter against my stomach. The doctor returned. She nodded once. All set. Quick. Final. At the door, she exchanged a few quiet words with the guard. Then she was gone. I was alone. Not really. The guard remained outside, unmoving, watching. I stood slowly, straightened my back, adjusted my scarf, stepped into the hallway. Every movement was noticed. Every word, spoken or unspoken, counted. I was safe. I was small. I was managed. The car was waiting. Seatbelt clicked. Engine hummed. Sunlight striped across my lap again. I touched my belly lightly. Alive. Known. Nothing I did went unseen. Compliance kept us safe. Curiosity would not. I closed my eyes and counted seconds until the next movement. Back at the estate, the bedroom was quiet. The sun sat low, gold spilling across the floorboards, across the blankets. The door clicked shut behind me. Security left. Engines faded into distance. Thabo appeared in the doorway. Just for a second. Hands behind his back, eyes unreadable. He nodded. No words. Then he was gone. Silence rushed in to fill the space he left. The phone rang, cold plastic against the nightstand. I knew before I answered. Her voice. Hello? My voice shook just enough for her to hear it. AMINA, she said. Careful, polite, distant. I know you made your choice. Just be careful. I froze. Be careful? I whispered. Be careful of what? Of them? Of me? My hand went back to my belly. Warm, small comfort. My heart thudded hard. I will, I said. Nothing more. Listening, nodding, even though she couldn't see me. She sighed, a warning wrapped in breath. We worry, you know. All of us. Yes, I said softly. I know. My eyes went to the doorway where Thabo had stood. Empty. I knew he already knew. Every word, every pause, every tremor in my voice. Call when you can, she added, and don't overextend yourself. I nodded again, didn't speak. The call ended. I placed the phone slowly on the nightstand, careful not to let it make a sound. I sat on the edge of the bed. The golden light faded. My fingers traced the curve of my stomach again. I was grateful she worried. Angry that her worry came wrapped in fear, in distance, in a frame I couldn't break. I was alone, really. He was everywhere. I exhaled. Slow, controlled. Every relationship, every voice from home, every private thought, all of it under his gaze. Safe, observed, managed. My hands rested over my belly. A quiet promise. Compliance kept us alive. Curiosity would get us nowhere. I stayed there a long time, counting seconds, waiting for the next instruction, the next call, the next moment that reminded me how little I moved on my own. Somewhere down the hall, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. I didn't need to see the guards to remember. They were here. Always. I checked my phone again. Ruth had sent a sticker. Grace sent a voice note. Be safe. Both messages were read, both unanswered. My hand drifted to my stomach, thumb brushing the edge of the prenatal vitamins bottle on the table beside me. 2 pills. Exactly 9:17 a.m. I remembered taking them. I started counting the rules in my head. No doors left unlocked. No photos online. Always report before leaving. Follow the schedule. Eat what is prepared. Ask before anything. I repeated them quietly to myself. Simple rules. Invisible fences. And they worked. I thought about the doctor appointments. Private rooms. Security waiting outside. One appointment ended abruptly last week. No explanation. No discussion. Thabo knew, of course. He always knew. He always managed. Sometimes in ways I could see. Sometimes in ways I couldn't. My mind drifted to the Maldives flight, the private plane, the staff who already knew our names. He arranged everything. Every detail. Every comfort. I remembered standing at the edge of the water, hesitating. The waves loud, intimidating. He stepped in front of me. Didn't ask. Just took my hand and pulled me forward. Not for himself, for me. I remembered the proposal, but also everything before it. Every doctor appointment, every grocery list, every meal he approved, every hard thing he made invisible so I could feel safe. A quiet panic fluttered in my chest. Was I too dependent? My fingers tightened over my stomach. I exhaled slowly. Logic. He did all of this for me. He sacrificed too. I knew that. I didn't need to count the hours, the unseen risks, the enemies he kept far away from me. Not trapped. Safe. Loved. I folded my hands again and let my eyes drift to the coffee table. Sunlight spilled over the polished wood, over the single hardcover book Ruth sent me, over nothing I could truly call mine. I weighed the independence I left behind against the security I had now. Calculated. Measured. Worth it. I closed my eyes, felt the warmth of the sun, the gentle chill from the air conditioning. I counted my breaths. I told myself slowly, carefully, this is love. This is protection. This is care. He had done too much, given too much, to ever let anything happen to me. And I accepted it. Some part of me noticed the locked rooms again. Some part of me wondered what would happen if I asked. But I didn't. I never did. Some things were better left unseen. I sat there with my hands over my belly. Safe. Protected. Managed. Loved. And somehow, for now, that was enough.